Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain with all of the people of our country.
Millions watched it live, thinking they were about to witness history. Instead, they saw a disaster unfold in just 73 seconds. But what if the crew was still alive as they fell? What if NASA had been warned the night before and ignored it? What if part of the shuttle was just found at the bottom of the ocean decades later? This isn't the story you learned in school. These are the shocking things you didn't know about the Challenger disaster. And once you hear them, you'll never see it the same way again. Let's go. The dream before the disaster, how Challenger was born. It wasn't just a rocket, it was a gamble disguised as progress. When Challenger launched into the sky in January of 1986, the world thought it was watching another proud milestone in America's space program. What most people didn't know was that this mission, like many before it, was built on years of ignored warnings, risky design choices, and political desperation. Challenger didn't just fail because of a rubber seal. It failed because it was the product of a system that made safety optional. But why did NASA push forward with such a fragile design? What was really driving America's space program in the first place? And why did the dream of reusable spaceflight begin with so many red flags? After the final Apollo mission returned to Earth in 1972, NASA found itself in a strange position. It had achieved the unthinkable, putting men on the moon, and yet, instead of celebrating endless funding, it was now being told to scale back. Congress was cutting budgets, and public attention was shifting. The moon landings had been spectacular, but now people asked, what's next? NASA had to answer that question fast, or risk becoming obsolete. Their solution was bold: build a space shuttle that could be launched over and over again. Not just once every few years, like Apollo, but frequently, up to 24 times per year. It would look and act more like an aircraft than a one-way rocket. It would carry astronauts, satellites, even military payloads into orbit, and bring them back safely. The idea was that this would make space travel cheaper, more routine, and more appealing to the government and the public alike. NASA called it the Space Transportation System, but everyone else just called it the Space Shuttle. They pitched it as a workhorse for the future, a reusable space truck that could do it all. Behind closed doors, however, there were serious problems. The ambitious design ran up against a harsh reality: money. Congress wouldn't approve the funding NASA needed to make the safest version of this vehicle. So compromises began. One of the most critical design choices involved the shuttle's two solid rocket boosters, or SRBs. These were enormous cylindrical rockets attached to either side of the shuttle's external fuel tank. They provided the majority of thrust at liftoff. But here's the problem: the safest option, liquid-fueled boosters, was rejected. Why? Because they were more expensive, more complex, and required more development time. Instead, NASA selected solid boosters made by Morton Thiokol, a private contractor with strong political ties. Solid boosters are cheaper to make and simpler to store, but they're also far more dangerous. Once ignited, they cannot be shut off. They burn until the fuel is gone. If something goes wrong in flight, there's no way to abort. From the moment those boosters are lit, the crew is committed. The SRBs were also designed in segments, a decision driven by manufacturing and transport concerns. Instead of building a single seamless rocket, Morton Thiokol made the boosters in pieces and bolted them together with joints. These joints were sealed using O-rings, rubber gaskets that were supposed to expand and prevent hot gases from leaking out. But that design came with a deadly weakness. If the O-rings didn't seal properly, especially in cold weather, superheated gases could escape and burn through the booster casing. Engineers pointed out this vulnerability early in testing. There were warning signs as early as 1981, but because no shuttle had been lost yet, NASA leadership viewed the risks as tolerable. They believed that past success was proof of future safety. It's a belief that would cost lives. During the Cold War, NASA's shuttle program doubled as a covert military asset. The Department of Defense planned to use it for launching spy satellites and classified payloads, including secret missions from a polar orbit site in California. NASA was balancing public science, military expectations, and congressional scrutiny all at once. To secure funding, it promised up to 24 launches per year, despite each shuttle requiring exhaustive inspections and repairs after every flight. But instead of slowing down, NASA sped up. Challenger was never designed for failure, only for show. Its sleek frame concealed fragile systems and dangerous shortcuts. And as launch after launch reinforced a false sense of safety, the agency marched forward, unaware or unwilling to admit that disaster was already built into the machine. New bombshells about the Challenger, disaster that will blow your mind. In the year 2022, nearly 4 decades after Challenger broke apart in the sky, something chilling surfaced beneath the waves. A dive team filming a World War II documentary off the coast of Florida stumbled upon an object that didn't match anything from that era. What they had discovered, completely by accident, was a 20-foot-long section of the Challenger Space Shuttle, preserved beneath layers of sand and seawater. It was one of the largest and most intact pieces of the wreckage ever recovered, and no one had been looking for it. The footage showed unmistakable thermal tiles still clinging to the fuselage, a haunting reminder of a tragedy most assumed had long been closed. But what else is still down there? And why did NASA keep some wreckage locations secret for so long? The discovery forced NASA to issue a rare public confirmation, acknowledging the find and stating that the debris would be preserved out of respect for the families and the legacy of the crew. But behind the official statements, the incident reignited a question that's been lingering since 1986. How much do we still not know about what really happened to Challenger, and why it happened at all? Just 2 years later, in 2024, attention returned to Krista McAuliffe, the schoolteacher who had captured the hearts of millions. A life-sized bronze statue was unveiled in her home state of New Hampshire, showing her mid-gesture, engaging, smiling, frozen in the hopeful energy she carried into that doomed launch. The statue wasn't just a tribute, it was a signal that her legacy, and the legacy of all 7 astronauts, still matters. Across classrooms and campuses, her story is being taught not as a feel-good moment about civilian spaceflight, but as a sobering lesson in risk, silence, and institutional failure. And then, in early 2025, another name returned to the spotlight: William R. Lucas, former director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, and a central figure during the Challenger era. Lucas passed away at the age of 102. For years, his name had been associated with the booster program, the very one responsible for the failed O-rings. In the aftermath of the disaster, the Rogers Commission had pointed to the culture at Marshall under Lucas's leadership as deeply problematic. Engineers were discouraged from raising concerns. Dissent was quietly pushed aside, and bad news was often filtered out before reaching top decision-makers. His death didn't just prompt obituaries, it reignited debate. Could Lucas have prevented the disaster? Should more accountability have been demanded from those in charge? Some insiders have even argued that his management style set the tone for a system where safety was too easily overruled by schedule and optics. In the final years of his life,